Hello again, and welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Rural Report. I am your Rural 2IC, and we haven't had one of these in a while, so let's take a revisit to the ugly truth about SHTF. Now, there's a lot that's going on lately, and it kind of brings up that, you prep for what might happen. And we preach that on this channel a lot, that when it comes down to a lot of it, you prep for what's probable, and then when you've got that down, you can prep for what's possible. And then once you get that, if you get to that stage, then you can kind of prep for the one in a million sort of thing, kind of as a hobby-ish, have fun sort of way. I used to joke that if you were prepared for the zombie apocalypse, then you were pretty much prepared for anything. And I still kind of stand by that to a little bit of an extent. There's a lot that goes into prepping as it is, but let's take some of these earthquakes that's been happening. So you, when it comes to an earthquake, let's put it this way: when it comes to an earthquake, there is usually, okay, I know what there's probably some people that's gonna a keyboard warrior this. Hear me out first. A earthquake is an act of nature. It's an act of God, okay? And so it does not care your race, color, creed, religion, anything along those lines, okay? It does not discriminate, and it's going to do it whether you're prepared or not, whether you're old, young, male, female, whatever it is. When an earthquake happens, it's going to happen, and you don't get a warning most of the time, and you're either prepared for it, which it's kind of difficult because they can happen day or night. They can happen while you're asleep, while you're driving, trying to take a shower, cook dinner, at work, whatever. And it usually catches everybody off guard. And so it brings that into it. How prepared are you at home? Okay, you're at home. If something like that was to happen, something that springs up. Now, I'm just using an earthquake as an example, but you can insert whatever you want here to make it to where it fits your scenario. So, do you have your home strategically set up for an earthquake? How many things do you have above your head that's not secured? And I know you'll get the thing of, well, we don't live in an earthquake area. Okay, well, what is it? New Jersey? They don't really have a ton of earthquakes. Now, earthquakes happen pretty much everywhere, but they don't really, they're not in earthquake territory that it's extremely common. And so it brings me back to it. How many things are above your head? How many things would it go to where maybe you have a shelf, a freestanding shelf that has a bunch of your mason jars where you've pickled things, or water glassed eggs, or you've canned a bunch of tomato sauce and pasta sauce and things like that. Okay, if you have an earthquake, what happens if that shelf suddenly falls? How much food is on there that just now shattered? Have you thought about that? That's kind of the ugly truth about all this. You can be as prepared as you want, but you have to be able to foresee things that are possible. Now, if you live in an area to where it floods a lot, or you get wildfires, you get this or that or whatever, you should prepare for those first. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you should not prep for the possible. Now, that goes into work too. Now, if you have an office, how well is your office set up? Do you have things overhead that could fall and take you out? You could have all your stuff. You can have a bug out kit in your car. You can have three ways to get home and all that. You could have all sorts of communication and fire starting and self-protection stuff, and you could have all the things that you want, but you didn't strategically set up your office. Now I get it, you're not going to be able, everybody's not going to be able to. Uh, but it's anything. You could be a truck driver. Have you strategically set up your truck? If you're a retail worker. Do you have everything set up? Are you in an environment that if something goes, are you prepared that some possible thing may happen? An earthquake can happen to anybody at absolutely any time. Now, it also brings into what usually goes on when some sort of an SHTF. Now, we're going to shift gears and kind of get away from the small earthquakes and things like that. And we're going to go into maybe a really, really big earthquake or some other sort of event, maybe a really big flood or uh, hurricane, tornado, anything along those lines. You start getting to where people will do desperate things. Okay. The unprepared are going to become desperate because most of us know that when disaster strikes, there's so much red tape and greed is a very bad habit of a lot of human beings and especially large corporations. And so when you have big insurance companies, they want to remain profitable. And so they are not usually quick to help you out. You may have been a loyal customer for the last 20 years, but if the entire town, kind of gets decimated, there's a lot of insurance claims. Yes, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to try and do insurance fraud and other things that they're going to have to try and weed out. But that's a pretty sizable check that they're getting ready to write to a lot of people. And so the ability to slow that process down helps them. And so, I mean, go through and ask some of these people that's been through these hurricanes and, different tornadoes and things like that. You start getting people that are normally good people, but it's a crime of opportunity. The opportunity presented itself. Normally, the door's locked. Okay, if I want in, I can get in, but no, it's too much work. Or, there's a $20 bill laying on the dash, but the car's windows are up and it's all locked up. It's too much work. Take that same 20 and roll the windows down in the car. Now it's a crime of opportunity. It's much easier. Remember, humans take the path of least resistance. And so when you present something that's easy pickings, okay? It's that low-hanging fruit. You start seeing people that normally are good people do really dumb things. So when it comes into it, let's say disaster strikes. You were prepared. Maybe you sandbagged your place, maybe you boarded up your windows, maybe you did this, that, whatever, and you rode out the storm, so to speak. How prepared are you for those other desperate people? Are you going to guard your castle or are you going to look out for your neighbor's property too? Is that too much? You know, are you going to take anybody in? Maybe, your neighbor come over because they couldn't fend off people. Maybe they were holding up really strong, but, some unfortunate thing happened and a weak point exposed itself and something failed and now they need a safe haven. Are you going to turn them away? Remember, before you do, many hands make light work. There's a lot of gruesome facts that I think a lot of people do not think about. And I wanted to wait until a few minutes into this because usually when you get some of the newer people, they watch for the first, 2, 3 minutes, maybe five if you're lucky. Um, but the true people stay for the remainder. So, to really get into the ugly truth, are you prepared enough to accept the inevitable? So if we're talking about a long-term true SHTF, insert whatever situation you want into this. You have a really good crew. You have whatever you want to call them, a mag, a tribe, whatever. You have all your bases covered. You strategically got everybody. Everybody knows their task. Everybody's well trained and things like that. Uh, are you prepared for an accident? Something happened to somebody, uh, you know, because if you statistically go through it, you've got 20 people in your mag. let's say that SHTF lasts for 2.5 years. Statistically, you're all not going to make it through it. Okay. Your group, okay, it's going to be one of those play by numbers. Luck is going to have a lot of things to do with it. It's one of those that you are your own worst enemy. Complacency gets into it. The longer you get into it, the more that you want to try and get back to normal. You want to go back to quote unquote being lazy a little bit. Oh, I've done this 1,000 times. I don't need to wear eye protection. I don't need gloves for that. I've done this a million times. I know what I'm doing. I don't need to pre-check anything. And that's where bad things tend to happen. It's unfortunate, but are you prepared for that? Because if you're not going to take anybody in, then, something may happen and your whole plan goes to waste. It may be the greatest plan. You may have the greatest group. It doesn't mean that some illness doesn't come in and wipe half of everybody out. Okay. You need to have those types of thought processes. You need to be able to war game a lot of that stuff out. There's a lot of people out there that do not practice what they preach. They think that a YouTube video or picking up a book or talking about it or overhearing it from somebody else makes them an expert. We all know that that's not true. There's a lot of people that really think that they're just going to take their grandpa's 1022 out in the woods and they're going to be able to provide dinner every single night for the next 2.5 years. Most of those people have never taken the life of an animal. They have no idea how. They don't know, the feeling of it, of the hunt before, the during, the after, what you do afterwards, how to safely, walk up to it to make sure that it's actually down, what to do with it, to gut it and field dress it, how to get, it back. Let's say it's a larger animal like a deer. You're by yourself and you've hiked out, a good 2 miles or whatever. You know how you're getting that back? Let's say it's even in the snow or whatever. You've hiked around. Are you good with direction? Did you follow this thing and follow the blood trail? And then now you got turned around, you've bent down, you field dressed it, you picked up, and you're going, I don't know where I'm at. Okay. There's a lot of things that, you know, eh, pretty much anything that a lot of people can say, you can argue either way. When you go out to go hunting or something along those lines, you'll have the people that'll say, put up markers. You need to put up things so that way, if you get hurt and you can't come back, people can follow your markers to you. Maybe you get turned around or whatever. You can, find your marker and find your way back home. Then you'll get people that say, well, then somebody else may come upon you and they'll follow the markers and they'll either find you or they'll find your compound, if you will. So yeah, you can argue just about anything all the way through. You don't want to use a projectile during SHTF. It's too loud and you've got to preserve and things like that. Yes, I get it. There's also times where you need to use it. The people you got to use something silent like a crossbow or a bow and arrow or something like that. Okay, there's a lot of other things that go into it. Just the same as bullets are, is the same thing as arrows. Well, I can make arrows. Have you seriously? Have you, especially for a crossbow with that much, or even a compound bow? Do you know how much pounds of force that is? Go ahead and try it out one time. Now, I know that there's probably one or two of you watching that have done it, and hats off to you. I'm not a good bow person at all. I own a crossbow. I'm decent with it. You put a recurve or a compound, um, you can probably stand me 10 feet from a barn, and I can probably get lucky and hit it once, out of 10 times. And that's just being perfectly honest with myself. I'm just not a bowman. And it goes into a lot of that when it comes to talking about this of the ugly truths about SHTF. How honest are you with yourself about all of it? Did you just read a book? When's the last time you practiced? When's the last time you went out to the range? When's the last time that you started a fire without using a Bic lighter? When's the last time that you actually canned anything, grew something, and actually grew it from seed, not a starter plant from Walmart? You know, and I know there's a ton of people that's gonna be like, "Oh, I do that all the time." Great. What else? When's the last time that you were able to diagnose the problem with a car and be able to fix it with what you had? When's the last time you were able to pull apart your lawnmower and, put two or three of them together to make one? How resourceful are you? You've got to find your areas of weakness and see if you can do something to where you can better yourself. There's a lot of people out there that they rely on somebody else. Okay. I don't can't stand the sight of blood. And so, I've got to get somebody that's medically trained and all that, and they'll take care of it. Okay. But you're dependent on somebody. Now I know you're not going to be able to do it all. Uh, Kind of like, let's say that like my neighbor can't stand the sight of blood. Well, that takes them out of a lot of things. They can't help out medically. They can't help out with game, fish or deer or squirrel or anything like that. It takes them out of a lot of things. Yeah, you can do what you can to help them get over it. Some people can't. And so you're going to have to be able to deal with that. Is that a red line? Look, if you can't take that, then you're not part of the group. Okay. But it comes back into it. You're going to have to take everybody because you're not going to have a team of 10 Jesuses in your thing to where everybody's picture perfect. It's not going to happen. And so you've got to make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze. When you weigh the person out, and you need to be completely honest with yourself and whoever is helping you make this decision, you need to look at every area and every aspect of that person. And so you need to look, what is all the benefits? What is all the negatives of this? Because just because they're medically and you need a medical person doesn't mean that personality wise they're going to fit in with the group. And that's going to cause a problem. Maybe they're just really annoying. And, do you really want to have it to where the first 3, 4 weeks everybody's perfectly healthy and fine, and everybody's trying to put up with Mr. or Mrs., super annoying? Maybe they're harsh. Maybe they just have a very abrasive personality. You've got to make sure that every single person fits and can fit together. You've got to make sure that you trust. For me, I have a Mrs. Rural and I have a Little Rural. And so if I bring somebody into my group, I have to make sure that I trust them, that if I need to leave, that they can be there with them. If I don't trust them around my child now, I'm certainly not going to trust them around my child then. And you can say all you want. When it comes to desperate times, people do desperate things. And so you may trust that person. They may be your neighbor for the last 10 years. You guys laugh and joke. They were at your kid's party for the last 2 or 3 years or whatever. You can say whatever you want, but you're off site, somebody comes up. Are they going to suddenly use your child as a human shield? You know, there's a lot that goes into it, and you've got to be careful with what you do, but you can't be too careful. And that's what I try and get with this on talking with everybody when it comes to this. There is technically no right or wrong, and I know I'm going to get a bunch of flack for that one. There's no right or wrong when it comes to prepping. You've got to make it fit you, okay? All the people that's going to come to you on most things, they're going to say, you're doing it wrong. You bought the wrong name brand. You got to do this. You got to do that, blah, blah. Look, the right or wrong is if you survive the situation, okay? That's all it is. It doesn't matter how you get from A to B as long as you get to B. That's it. So if they own a Kimber and they make it, and you own a High Point and you make it, who cares? Okay, I mean seriously, who cares? They got some name brand gear of all this high expensive whatever, and you bought a few things from Walmart, a flea market, and picked a few things out of the trash. If you make it, who cares? Remember, all these zombie movies, what are they doing? They're scavenging. So what's the big deal anyway? Why do you need, this really high-end stuff and telling everybody you gotta buy the best of the best when every movie, TV show, comic, whatever you want to do, everybody's scavenged. You really think that they're walking along and they pick something up, they're like, oh, they're not name brand, toss that thing out. No, they don't do that. Why? Because when you need something, you find a way to be able to make it work. That's just what it is. You know, if it comes down to it, I'm walking along and all of a sudden I see that there's a knife and I pick it up and I go, oh, it's made in China. Throw it. No, it's useful. Yeah, it may break after, a couple of uses or whatever, but I'm going to get a couple of uses. That couple of uses is better than no knife at all. So I just want to get you to think about all this. Now, yes, is there things that people can? You shouldn't turn everybody off. When you're like, oh, well, you mix a gallon of bleach with a couple of water. No, okay? They're trying to save you. Don't do that. But on most of the other things, it's whatever fits you. You've got to do what fits you, what fits your situation, what fits your needs, what benefits you and your family. Shop within your budget. Do the things that will make it work for you. Remember, you're not trying to keep up with the Joneses. You're not trying to impress anybody. You want to impress me? At the end of SHTF, walk up to me and go, hey, I made it. Okay. Come up and shake my hand and be like, hey, I did it. Okay. That's impressive because I'm telling you right now, there's a bunch of people out there that literally went and gone into huge debt, spent thousands of dollars, ran up credit cards, done all of this stuff, and they don't train. They don't listen to, the people like me and a lot of these other channels that go, you need to use your stuff. You need to train. Knowledge is way better than gear. Gear just assists you in your knowledge skills. They're not going to survive. You can take this opportunity, utilize with what you've got, and make it work. That's the way a lot of this stuff works is resourcefulness, the ability to look at something and go, okay, I can't have the best of the best. How do I make do with what I've got? And you're going to go a lot further. Okay. Don't get it into your head that it's a surefire way. Oh, rural said this. I'm guaranteed. You're not guaranteed nothing. Okay. Sorry. Remember, this is the ugly truth. Nobody's guaranteed. It doesn't matter. It's trying to give you the best chance possible of survival. But I've rambled on enough. Okay. Usually on all these, we start off with a topic or two and veer off in about 100 different ways. And this one's no different. We did just the same thing. So I'm glad that we had this little chat. I look forward to doing more of them. I've got a lot more content. I've reached out to some people. We're going to hopefully be able to do some different interviews and bring some things on. I'm trying to work out a panel and some other fun things. We're doing the Caleb House stuff. We've got a bunch of things going on. So if you made it to this far in the video, you rock. I appreciate you so much. I love each and every one of you guys and do all the fun YouTube things. You know what it is. So, with that, I hope you guys have a very blessed day. And with that, say it with me now. Above everything else, please remember to remain united because we're all prepping in this together.